Hello, everyone. From last few days, we have been continuously hearing about the new syllabus being launched, ICAI coming up with a new scheme of education and training. And finally, as we all already know about it, on 1st of July 2023, the Institute has announced and launched the new scheme of education and training. And we also have the new syllabus updated for us. So here today, I am to discuss the comparison or the changes that have happened with the new syllabus of CA Final Audit. So we are going to take up the discussion of the overall changes, understand what new changes have been brought in the syllabus, what continues to remain the same, and where all things have been added upon. Let me tell you, before we get started with the discussion, the way in which now the syllabus is framed, the way in which the syllabus is drafted, trust me, it is such a sequential way, such a structured manner that students are going to have an ease of understanding the subject. Obviously, when you are in CA Final, your basic concepts of audit are in place. And then you need to develop it even better when it comes to final. Now, the way it is given, the structure of it has been modified in such a way that you will be able to understand and apply the concepts of auditing in the real world very nicely. Okay, so with this, let us get started with the discussion. First of all, remains the paper 3 of the CA final subject syllabus. And most importantly, the very name of the subject has undergone a change. So we earlier called it to be Advanced Auditing and Professional Ethics. Now it will be called as Advanced Auditing and Assurance and Professional Ethics. Okay, so obviously no much change here, but yes, they have renamed it. So you should be very well aware of the new name which has been given, that is Advanced Auditing and Assurance and Professional Ethics. Okay, now there have been a lot of changes that have come. If you look at the syllabus, okay, number of chapters have been increased, but they have just not increased the content, they have changed the content. That means they have brought in a lot of new concepts, a lot of new things which were not there earlier. Now, just to give you a little idea of what has been included as completely new thing as a part of our syllabus. Earlier, when we spoke about the pronouncements, when we spoke about the standards, we restricted our discussion only on standards and auditing. But then we always knew that there are some other set of standards also, which talks about standard on related services. Okay, then we have our prospective financial information. So these all we got introduced only with the names. Like we had SRS, we had SREs. Okay, these all we only knew them by name, but we never studied them. Okay, already in the earlier syllabus it was there, but then the last syllabus that we had for our examination point of view, we did not include all of this, and references to only names were given. But now the Institute study material, module 2 of the new syllabus, actually is including all the standards now in detail. So you are not going to have your restricted discussion only to standards on auditing, not only on the standard and quality control that we study, but now you are going to get introduced to all these standards. So when you talk about specialized areas like SA 800 series, when you talk about related services, when you talk about other services, these all, when we spoke about the 4-digit standards like 3400, all of these, you only knew the names of it. Okay, and we used to always feel happy, these are the standards, okay. But now it is going to be that you have to study the content, like how you study all the standards, the objective, the content, why it has been introduced, what is the applicability. On the same lines, these are also now introduced. So in the CA final syllabus, we have additional set of standards also being a part. I would rather say this was required. This is the complete understanding of the standards framework. It becomes very important for a person who's going to qualify as a chartered accountant to also be aware of all the services or all the standards which are applicable when he starts his practice or when is required for his profession. So a very good introduction that has been there. Second important change which I want to highlight is regarding elimination or removal from the subject, few important topics which we discussed earlier. Okay, like just would come for a surprise, but we had tax audit under fiscal laws. But now this has completely been removed. We had some very interesting concepts like peer review. We had quality review, which was discussed earlier, but now this has not been there as a part of the syllabus. So like that, I'll help you understand the differences, compare, and also understand the major changes. According to me, my personal understanding is that the new syllabus has been really structured very well, and they've included some very important parts in the syllabus, some important areas which a chartered accountant should know on his qualification. All right. So with this, let us get started, have a comparison, have an understanding of the old syllabus, new syllabus, and then I'll share a file with you where I've done detailed analysis of the overall syllabus changes. so that you'll get in one go the clarity of what is the new syllabus talking about. So with this, let us get started. All right, so let us first look at the first earlier syllabus that we had. So earlier, which was for all the examinations that were applicable earlier, we saw that altogether the syllabus was classified into 3 different modules, where in the module 1, we had 6 chapters, and then we had another 6 chapters in the next module, and then we spoke about professional ethics and the remaining chapters as a part of 3rd module. All right. So this, when you looked at it, when you looked at the very outset, when you used to look at the syllabus earlier, you used to feel so many things we have to study as a part of the syllabus. But then what they have done is, all of these has now been modified. All of these have been changed, and in a very concise, in a very proper manner, all these chapters are still included, but now in a very structured approach. Okay. So here, if you look at it, the very changes that have happened initially, just to highlight a little, this part of the standard, that is this part of the topic, that is regarding the overview, that has been removed completely, which we spoke about the retrospective understanding, like the history of audit, the international bodies, okay, about the international financial reporting bodies, how all the auditing standards boards operate. All of that has now been eliminated from the syllabus. Okay. Then audit planning strategy, that obviously has to continue to remain the same. Risk assessment is still continuing. Then audit in automated environment, this content still continues, but we have now a new name given to it, a new technological term added to it, which we call it to be digital audit. Okay, so the content still continues, but under a separate head altogether, which we call it to be digital audit. Company audit, the discussion has been totally taken off, I believe, because it is covered as a part of corporate law. It has been eliminated here. Audit report has to continue. It is the core of audit. This chapter, audit committee, corporate governance, then this part is not there included in the new syllabus. Audit of CFS is still included, but now again under a new head, which we call it to be group audits. Okay, then audit of banks continues. Audit of insurance has been removed now. NBFC still continues. I told you one of the major changes that have come is audit under the fiscal laws, that is tax audit, where we spoke about the 3CD and all those forms are not there now. Okay, then the 3rd module, which we used to discuss earlier, which spoke about audit of PSU, that continues to remain as it is. Liabilities of the auditor, it continues, but now they have not kept a separate chapter for it. It has been included as a part of professional ethics. Okay. Internal audit continues, but management operational audit has been removed. Then due diligence, investigation, forensic audit continues as it is, because these are all the latest things that are happening in today's world. So all of this knowledge we really require to have. Peer review, quality review has been gone. It's one of my favorite topics, but yes, it has been removed now. And professional ethics continues as it is, because the very name of the subject still has the word professional ethics. So when you talk about the schedules, Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 of the CA Act, then we talk about the Part 1, Part 2, all the professional misconducts, other misconducts, all of that is going to continue to be the same. Along with that, the Council General Guidelines that also are intact. No changes have been happening there. So this is just the understanding that we used to study all of these chapters earlier, where we had a discussion elaborately about all these things. And then we had a separate discussion about all the auditing and assurance standards. We had a separate, module, and we used to study about it in detail, all the standards. But now something very well structured and something which I would feel is really good what has come up with is all the standards have now been placed in the respective topics. Earlier also we had that. But then yes, now the elaborate discussion, the complete discussion of a standard is put in the relevant topic. Like when you talk about audit planning, you'll talk about everything regarding SA 300. When you don't talk about auditor's responsibility in relation to fraud, SA 240 will be covered there. Risk assessment 315 will be covered in that topic. So like that, a lot of new things have been introduced, or new structural changes have been done, which is going to be really good for the students. Okay, then. This was the old syllabus, so it was, now it's gone completely. Let us see what the new syllabus is talking about. Okay, so when you look at the new syllabus, first of all, you'll be happy because, one second. Yeah, if you look at the new syllabus, first of all, the content itself will look very small, okay, compared to the earlier where so many divisions and all were done. So you will see they have given a very clear understanding of 3 modules. Under that, there are respective chapters given. No subclassification, nothing has been done. So in one go, it looks very simple to understand. These all chapters, okay, we are going to now have a detailed discussion of what they are going to talk about. But just for a better, before we begin, just to get a proper mindset, quality control, these topics were not there earlier. Like we had completion and review, which was not covered earlier, which I call to be a very good introduction, because there are certain standards. Students, you should not understand the applicability of the standards, where the standards are actually used. But introducing this particular chapter actually gives a proper application, a scenario for the students to understand where the standards like subsequent events, written representation, where exactly during the course of audit you obtain these evidences. Okay, so that's a very good introduction. That is completion and review. Then you have, I told you, these are the major changes that I would call specialized area, the SN 800 series, audit related services, SREs. When you talk about review of financial information, okay, SRS, SREs, then we have prospective other assurance services. All of these are the brand new introduction. Though we knew the names earlier, but we used to always feel very happy. Our standards are there, and there are other set of standards. Okay, we knew the names, but now detailed understanding how we understand standards on auditing. On the same lines, now we have to get introduced to these set of standards also, and that too in detail, which I would consider it to be very required as a part of you qualifying as a chartered accountant. Okay, then digital auditing and assurance is just a renaming done to audit an automated environment. Group audits are CFS, consolidated financial statements. I told you bank audit and NBFC is going to continue to remain as it is. See, these are core syllabuses. These are core concepts which cannot be touched upon. Okay. Then PSU, government audits, and all are going to consider as it is. Internal audit, you see, management audit, operational audit not included. Due diligence, investigation, forensic audit continues. Now comes something very interesting. This, which you have never studied earlier, is now got introduced. These are considered to be emergency areas. Okay. They are considered to be emergency areas where we are going to talk about SDG, and we're going to talk about ESG assurance. Now, SDG stands for Sustainable Development Goals. Okay. And when you talk about ESG assurance, it is environmental, social, and governance. So earlier, we used to only think auditor is concerned with only financial statements of the entity. It has nothing to do with the social, environmental, governance, and all of that. But now ICAI is playing a role into all the sustainability of the market conditions, environment, everything. So this chapter is going to introduce to us what is the role of ICAI with respect to all these areas. And obviously, if ICAI is involved, obviously members are a part of it. So there is going to be some kind of integrated reporting that we are going to study, and that will come as a part of chapter 18, which is a complete new introduction. Okay. And finally, professional ethics. I told you we had separate topic earlier for liabilities of auditor, but now this has been included as a part of professional ethics. So as I've given you an overall framework as a backdrop of understanding it, a little more detailed discussion I want you to have so that you understand properly what are the new things that have been introduced, which are the earlier parts which have been omitted, and all these 19 chapters, what each chapter is going to individually talk, a synopsis of that would be important for you to get an insight of the subject as a whole. So with this, let us get an understanding of the chapter-wise discussion that we are going to take up now. All right, so let us get started. Okay. Having studied the overall, the syllabus of old and new, I've just tried to make some kind of comparison. Okay. So first thing is, as I told you in the beginning itself, the name of the subject is changing. And now the name of the subject will not be Advanced Auditing and Professional Ethics. It is going to be Advanced Auditing, Assurance, and Professional Ethics. Okay. Then earlier we had 3 modules. Now also they continue to be 3 modules only. Earlier it was 18 chapters. Now the overall discussion is going to be covered by 19 chapters. You can understand one additional chapter when very clearly you understand about the emergency areas which were not there earlier. Okay. Then when you talk about the new syllabus, let us pick up one by one the chapter and understand it. First chapter is going to be quality control. Okay, this is not something brand new. It is something that you studied as a part of SQC1, Standard and Quality Control, and the quality control for the audits as SA220. So these 2 standards, which are considered to be extremely important for exam point of view also, and for understandability also, now the institute, what they have done is, this particular 2 chapters or these particular 2 standards, which have so much importance, a separate chapter altogether has been made for it. So quality control is going to talk about these 2 things, SQC1 and SA220, where we talk about the quality control framework required by the chartered accountants firm. Okay, so that is very, very important one. So it talks about the engagement quality control reviewer, all of those things are covered by the first chapter. Okay, then second, we talk about general auditing principles and auditor's responsibility. Okay, so if you look at the very name, you'll understand it's talking about auditing principles and it is auditor's responsibilities. Okay, now It first talks about SA 240, and we have seen the intermediate syllabus where fraud and responsibility of auditor with regard to fraud was removed. So you can see here, you're going to begin the introduction or with the understanding of the responsibility with respect to this standard, SA 240. Then we talk about communication with TCWGs, consideration of laws and regulation, okay, with TCWG communication, joint audit, okay, auditors consideration with those relating to those entities which are using service organization, SA 402. So basically, you can talk about this particular chapter as being a collective understanding of these standards together. So this chapter, general principles and responsibilities of the auditor, is nothing but a cumulative study of these standards, that is 240 risk fraud, 250 consideration of laws and regulation, 260 communication with TCWG, 299 joint responsibilities of the auditor, and the responsibility of the auditors in joint audits. And 402 is about service organization. So if you bring all these standards together, you actually study as a part of this particular chapter. Then we have to the third one, which talks about audit planning, strategy, execution. This will continue to remain the same because very important to understand about planning, strategizing, and also how to execute the audit plan by preparing the audit program. So basically 300, which talks about planning, will continue. In this chapter, you're going to talk about audit plan, audit strategy, audit program, interrelationship of audit planning and strategy, all of that, documenting the strategy, the plan, the program, the advantages and disadvantages of the audit program. All of that will continue to remain the same. Along with that, they have included some discussions of other standards as a part of this particular chapter. So SA 600, 610, 620, where we talk about using the work of others, that is about other auditors, internal auditors, and auditors expert. These three we study as a part of this chapter now. 540, which talks about auditing accounting estimates. And 520 analytical procedures are now not going to be studied as a separate auditing standard. We don't go to the pronouncements and we study individually these standards now. No. When you study about audit planning, strategy, and execution, these all standards will get covered here. Okay. So again, this is a combination of all the standards taken together as one of the chapters. But apart from that, obviously, I told you about audit program, you're going to study in detail. All right. Then. Fourth chapter, which was like earlier, we had this risk assessment, internal control. They are having a new chapter now, materiality, risk assessment, internal control. So with the very name materiality, you'll understand SA 220, 320 will be discussed here. Then audit risk, totally about the components of the audit risk will be discussed with SA 315. About internal controls, the meaning of it, the components of internal control, inherent limitations of internal control, everything, all the related concepts we are going to study as a part of this chapter. Auditors' responses to assessed risk, which is very, very important. That also we cover as a part of risk assessment. And 320 with the name itself, it suggests it talks about materiality. Okay, again, this I would say is a combination of standards taken together. Okay, then. One very interesting part which has been introduced is about international internal control framework. Okay, so like we have COSO, we have COCO and COBIT. These are all international standards on internal control policies and procedures. So this international framework has got introduced to you. These are all the policies, procedures adopted internationally, about which you're going to get an introduction. Even Sarbanes-Oxley's Act of the USA, United States of America, which talks about the application of internal control and matters connected to internal control, you are going to get a basic introduction to it. I believe this is all to make you in line with the international requirements as well. So that is the reason this part has now got included as a part of the syllabus. Okay, then. When you talk about audit evidence, this will continue to remain the same and you can clearly understand what audit evidence would include. Obviously, everything that is collected as a part of 500 series. Well, the total 500 series will talk about collection of audit evidence. Okay, all the procedures to be performed for obtaining the audit evidences. So 500 strictly talking about audit evidence. Specific consideration for selected items, external confirmation, initial audit engagement, 530 audit sampling, which is very important. Okay, which talk about audit sampling, 550 related parties. These are all included as a part of audit evidence. If you connect this to that of intermediate level, trust me, it is the same. So audit evidence, when you talk about an intermediate, okay, all the chapters that you study, that same continues to be as a part of CA final also. So all this will remain the same. Again, it is a group of standards taken as a particular chapter. Okay, then. Something which I call it to be a very good introduction, that is about the new chapter altogether called as completion and review. We never had this kind of chapter earlier. And in fact, we studied 560 subsequent event, going concern, 580 written represent. Written representation we spoke as a part of audit evidence earlier. But the right place to study about this is actually about the place where after obtaining audit evidences, but before preparing the audit report, there is some additional procedure which the auditor performs, which we call it to be 580. Okay, so that's written in the presentation. So exactly where these are going to be applicable is this chapter of completion and review, which according to me is something which a student really requires to know. So 560, 570, and 580. All right. Then reporting, where again, there's not going to be any change included, obviously. You can see 700, 701, 5, 6, 10, 20. All of this obviously talks about audit reporting. So these are going to be as a part of audit report. When you talk about CARO 2020, I told you company audit as a subject, as a chapter itself is eliminated. So we have to discuss something very important regarding reporting under a Companies Act, which talks about CARO reporting, which has now been taken as a part of reporting chapter of the new syllabus. Okay. Then when you discuss about the module 2, okay, very, very important area that we have, specialized area. I told you this is going to be something which you're going to study brand new now as a part of the syllabus, where you will get introduced to the 800 series in detail, where you'll talk about audit of related services, SRS in detail, review of financial information, SREs also you'll be studying now in detail. Okay, so these are again the set of standards which have been taken as individual chapters, and we discuss about these chapters in detail. Prospective financial information, which you can remember, or if you can connect in professional ethics, when we talk about auditor is not allowed to vouch the accuracy of a transaction, that time we give a reference to SAE 3400. So that time we only gave a reference to the standards, understood a little bit about the standard, but now in-depth understanding of these standards is going to be there. So prospective financial information, okay, also becomes a part of the syllabus. So now the major changes, introduction of these standards, specialized area, audit related services, a review of financial information, and prospective financial information and other assurance services. So SREs, SRS, SAEs, okay, these are all the new things that have been added along with the 800 series of specialized area. Then this is all the renaming, which I call it. It is digital auditing, which is nothing but automated environment. Group audit, as I told you, is audit of CFS. Special features of bank and NBFCs will continue to remain as it is. So we have bank audit and NBFCs, which is going to be as it is. Module 3 will talk about overall audit of PSU, which is again the audit of PSU we studied earlier as it is. Public sector undertaking, government audit, we call it. Same. Internal audit, the content will remain the same, but obviously you are going to get introduced to internal auditing standards. Obviously earlier also we got a basic understanding about the same, that continues to remain the same. But you can see management operational audit is not there. Okay, so that has been removed. Due diligence, investigation, forensic audit, because the importance is very much in today's world. So this chapter remains as it is, no change absolutely. As I told you, you have this complete new introduction. That is emergency areas, where you talk about SDG and ESG, which is completely new, where you're going to understand about integrated reporting and benefit of such kind of reporting to our profession. Most importantly, ICAI's role, we are going to understand about sustainability. So where forums are made, CAs play a very important role in the forums for all the sustainability development and all of that. So basically, this is going to be a brand new understanding to everybody, including us. So something which is very important, or something new which has been taken up by the institutes, that's the council, that is ICAI. And also we have something called integrated reporting, where we are going to study about environment, social governance. On that also, do we have a reporting responsibility? The answer would then be yes. Okay. Then we have professional ethics and liability of the auditor, which will continue to remain the same. So where you are going to study the Part 1, Part 2, the schedules, the general council general guidelines, okay, about the, when you talk about write-up, advertisements, all of those will continue to remain the same. And liabilities of the auditor is being included as part of this chapter, okay? Then, just for a quick recap with the comparison that we can do with the earlier one, I told you chapter 1 overview of the earlier syllabus has been removed completely. Audit planning will continue to remain the same. Risk assessment, internal control, absolute no change. There is going to be this same thing. When you talk about audit in an automated environment, it is only brought under the digital audit. Company audit has been eliminated. That, as you can see, it is removed from the syllabus. CARO has been introduced as a part of reporting. Audit report to be continued to be same, but inclusion of CARO as a part of audit report. Audit committee, corporate governance, a big discussion that we had with regarding to LODR guidelines and all that, SEBI regulations, then about board audit committees, everything that has been removed, a major discussion that we had. Audit of CFS continues, but under a new name that is called as group audit. Audit of bank continues to be the same. Audit of insurance company, not included. NBFC will continue. One of the major changes, tax audit has been removed. Okay, so the major changes under the tax audit that we don't have anymore. PSU will continue to be the same. Liability of the auditor now covered under professional ethics. Then you have internal audit, management, operational audit earlier, which now you have only internal audit. Due diligence, investigation, forensic audit, no longer continued. Due diligence, this cannot be removed because it has a lot of importance in today's world, as I told you. So that continues to be the same. Peer review, quality review, which was very interesting and something which is very practical understandability that has not been included in the new syllabus. Okay. Then professional ethics will continue to be the same. The exhaustive discussion about all the schedules, all the parts, all the professional misconduct, other misconduct, council general guidelines, all of that will continue to remain the same, including fundamental principles of ethics and all that will remain the same. Auditing pronouncements, these are not eliminated, obviously they have to be there, but now properly they are brought in various topics. So every single chapter when you're going to study, all those standards on auditing, all the guidelines, all the statements which are relevant in those particular areas, they have been taken as a respective chapter itself. So you can see when you talk about reporting, all these pronouncements are here. When you talk about specialized areas, these pronouncements are included in this chapter. So we cannot say they are removed. Obviously that cannot be because that's the very basics of auditing. So all that have been properly structured. And when I began the discussion itself, I had told you that when you ask me if what is the new syllabus talking about, it includes the same things which are there earlier, but the structure of it has been done very nicely for the understandability of the student. Rather, I would also say, if you go through the syllabus, if you look at the ICAI study material, the number of examples, the case studies that have been given gives a very clear indication that now the institute is very clear on the students having actual practical knowledge about all these concepts. An examination will be practical oriented, because there have not only case studies been discussed, so many new examples have been introduced so that the student is well aware of the real scenarios. So according to me, these all things have been a very good thing for the benefit of the students to understand the subject in detail. All right. So I think this was the discussion that I really wanted to have with all of you and for you to get an insight of the syllabus changes. Yes, some parts have been removed, which students will be very happy. But on the contrary, some additional part is also being included, which are something new. Some parts are going to be heavy, like we have the other standards on auditing, which we didn't study earlier, of the SREs, SAEs, all of those. Those are going to be heavy discussions that we are going to have. Then we have a renaming that is being updated with the latest terms and terminologies that are available, like digital audits and all. We're going to get introduced to that. Tax audit, okay, which becomes a core part of the income tax audit and all. So maybe it is going to be now be included as a core subject there, but here as a part of auditing, it has been removed. All right. So with this, I believe it was really helpful for all of you to understand the major changes in the old and new syllabus. However, things of auditing, the fundamentals will remain the same. Okay. Structural changes are very good for the students to understand the process. And I believe that this new change is going to be very beneficial for the purpose of understandability. All right. So with this, we'll conclude our discussion here. Thank you.